Now, you want to know about the Cortland bus. It's late. It was late when you asked a half hour ago, late when you come back 15 minutes later, and it's late now. And all the asking in the world ain't gonna push it none.
But this is the first time I've been up here. The very first time.
Hello, and welcome to the Twilight Pwn, the internet's third most popular Twilight Zone-based podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host, Fred.
Hello.
How are you doing this week, Fred?
I'm good. I can tell by your voice that I'm doing a little better than you, but I think whatever you've got lends your voice kind of like a smoky, sexy quality.
Well, I had a pretty hard game of Game of Thrones, the board game, second edition, Feast for Crows expansion pack. That's going to wear down anyone. So.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, a little raw. Yeah. A little raw today.
You got the voice of a dangerous loner who stayed up all night pretending to be a dwarf.
Right.
Cool.
Oh, Fred. Noob.
I know. There are no dwarves in Game of Thrones? What are there? There's elves, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's children of the forest, but come on, Fred, there's no elves. That's stupid.
Yeah. No, agreed. Totally agreed. So what are we doing this week?
All right, that's a seamless transition over to our actual content of our podcast. We will be discussing the Twilight Zone episode Mirror Image. This was the this was the 21st episode of the production run. It aired in the first season on February 26, 1960.
Millicent Barnes, age 25, young woman waiting for a bus on a rainy November night. Not a very imaginative type is Miss Barnes, not given to undue anxiety or fears, or for that matter, even the most temporal flights of fancy. Like most young career women, she has a generic classification as a, quote, girl with a head on her shoulders, end of quote. All of which is mentioned now because in just a moment, the head on Miss Barnes's shoulders will be put to a test. Circumstances will assault her sense of reality, and a chain of nightmares will put her sanity on a block. Millicent Barnes, who in 1 minute will wonder if she's going mad.
In the Twilight Zone.
Or to the Twilight Zone, yes.
Yeah. It's weird. I feel like Serling can't, get out of the mode of insulting his protagonist.
Right.
Basically, he's saying she's smart and sensible, but he's, not very imaginative, not prone to flights of fancy. It's like, everything you're saying is basically positive, but you're saying it like she's an idiot, you know?
Yeah, and he's kind of like, she's got a good head on her shoulders, but just wait.
Yeah.
She's about to act like a dumb woman here in just a minute.
And that provides a smooth transition into my intro. We like to write sort of Serling-style intros. I always wonder, if I sort of feel like there's no new listeners to our podcast. It's basically the same 10 people who have been with us the whole time. But we should explain.
Well, given your pimping out during the New Year's Eve thing, I think it's plausible we've gotten some possible new people. You never know.
Welcome on board 4 or 5 new people. So we like to do these Serling-style intros. They are occasionally funny. We'll see this week. I'll go first. Mm-hmm. Tonight's tale concerns the aged Millicent Barnes, 25 going on spinster, a young woman with quite a peculiar problem. She's unmarried. Yes, there might be a little matter of a missed bus, a misplaced suitcase, a portal to another dimension in the ladies' bathroom, but we all know what Millie's really upset about. The empty real estate on her left ring finger. It's not that she's not doing the right things. Slowly losing your mind in a bus station in the middle of the night is a time-honored method for hooking a man. But if she doesn't act fast, her smugly evil doppelganger is going to cut in on the dance and beat her to Mr. Right, leaving Millie stuck with Mr. Twilight Zone.
Yep. I think that's what this episode's really about when you get right down to it.
Yeah, more or less.
Millicent Barnes, a young, unassuming male of the fee persuasion, about to board a bus bound for brighter boroughs. But her bus is behind, and what should be nothing more than a test in tedium is about to become an exercise in terror when she is faced with the most bewildering bugaboo. Baggage that appears to be identical to her own. A creepy carry-on that has the same shape, form, color, taste as her own. Outlandish, you say? Maybe at your terminal, but not at the baggage claim department in the Twilight Zone.
Nice. I liked Male of the Fee Persuasion. This is a first season episode, so check it out before we get going. You can stream it on Hulu, Netflix, it's on YouTube as well, and of course buy the DVDs and Blu-rays. But we are going to spoil it, so check it out before we get going and spoil the plot. Like,
it just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Wait, were you winding up?
No, you saved me from trying to scrabble for a dumb pun. Go on.
Good. One of my old bosses will sometimes say something like, yeah, I had to Yahoo that, and everyone thinks he sounds absurd because, instead of I had to Google that, he still uses Yahoo.
Yeah.
Do you think, people, assuming anyone 10 years from now, comes upon these, will be like, oh my God, they used to use YouTube. That's so lame. Do you think there'll be a different video service?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but it's hard for me to imagine, what would be more convenient than watching the thing for free. You know what I mean?
Maybe it'll be like the Old West, oh man, remember when they had that YouTube thing where everything was free and filled with hate comments?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure YouTube will seem old. It's just hard in the present moment to figure out exactly how it'll be. It seems like the most convenient thing ever, but I guess so did telegrams. So I don't know.
Cool. All right. Sorry. So
not at all
discussing the plot.
No. Yeah. Well, you definitely saved me my weekly attempt to make a pun for that bit, and always failing. Anyway, we're going to spoil this episode, so check it out before we get going. We start on a dark and stormy night, and I kind of like the last episode that we covered that started with a dark and stormy night was the Howling Man. And I just like, because that one is it's a dark and stormy night, and then it cuts to a Bavarian monastery. And this one is it was a dark and stormy night at a bus station in Utica. It goes.
Well, I kind of wondered about that because it is pretty overt, the dark and stormy night setup. So I wondered if they were let's go to our most easy, this is a spooky story signal because we're about to go into a place that's really pedestrian.
Yeah.
Do you think they were really trying to, I mean, it's the most obvious thing you can do to set mood and atmosphere to the point where it's kind of cliche. Well, not kind of, very cliche.
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of hard to think of something more cliche in storytelling than a dark and stormy night. So we quickly get to our main character, the woman Serling was telling us about, Millicent Barnes, who has a quote-unquote good head on her shoulder. I don't know is that a quote from Anna Karenina or something like that? I don't know. But anyway, it's a woman who has missed a bus, and she goes up to the counter to complain about said missed bus, and the bus depot man is urging her to chill out, embrace intercom, accept the unknowable nature of the universe, and namaste. But there's some confusion because he seems annoyed at her because she had already been up to the counter, and she's like, no, I haven't been up to the counter. That's annoying. And so right off the bat, it's kind of cool how they're able to create a sense of unease out of a very simple set and a very pedestrian situation. You know what I mean? I thought that was kind of neat.
Sure.
Anyway,
quick
hot or not on the old man. Did you kind of think he looked like Donald Rumsfeld?
I didn't think of that. I'll have to go back and look at the photographs.
The known
footage.
Unknowns.
Right.
Your bag is here.
Right.
You
don't always get on the bus with the bags you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go with the bags you have.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even more confusion because there's an exact copy of the bag that she thinks she has already stored in the baggage claim. And the guy's like, you already dropped it off for me. And we had actionable intelligence. Anyway.
Exactly.
But, we're in a state of confusion here, and then we get Serling intro, and then we get back. And Millicent goes into the bathroom to kind of wash up, and the cleaning lady has seen her in there recently. And this whole situation's getting to her, and she's indignant, and she's about to go write a very harsh Yelp review of this bus station. But on her way out, she sort of catches a glimpse in the bathroom mirror, a exact replica of herself sitting on the bench that she had been sitting on a second before. What did you think of that effect shot?
I thought it was effective.
Hey-oh. I set him up, you knock him down, Johnny.
Yeah, bang, bang, bang. There's another 5-star review.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny is I'm sure some people will listen and think that we like... Nice. Nice.
That's how all the listeners feel right now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Glad we got to use that again. I was about to say, it's like, I'm sure there are people who will think that we, like, agreed on that joke beforehand. But the sad reality is it was off the dome. Anyway, I thought it was a cool shot, just because you don't see it for very long. Like, in the doppelganger version of herself, it's very small because it's in a mirror from a distance, and so you're like, what was that? And then the door closes and she's gone.
Right.
But when she goes outside again, the doppelganger is gone.
So at this point, I'll ask: did you notice that she was wearing gloves?
No, I didn't. Interesting, though.
She's wearing gloves, and it just made me think in a very tangential and not really fruitful discussion point.
By all means, continue. Yeah.
Do women or people in general really wear gloves all that often when it's not like really cold? I'm just wondering.
Ladies, the phone lines are open on this one. We want to hear from you.
I'm just wondering, is that something that's just out of fashion, or do I not live in a cold weather climate, so I just don't notice gloves very often?
Well, I mean, people wear gloves when it's cold, but I think the concept of like a lady wearing gloves is more of an archaic thing. You know what I mean?
I'm glad we were able to put that in context, because some people probably thought there was a big twist coming, like she'd take it off and she'd have man hands,
or like pig hands or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That was the original Hands of the Beholder.
Right.
Hands of the Holder.
Manos, Hands of the Beholder.
Yeah. We're on fire. Anyway, help arrives for her peculiar situation in the form of a guy named Paul. Actually,
slightly before this, there's not actually a ton of dialogue in this episode, so they kind of fill it up. We get a little inner monologue from Millicent.
Yeah.
What's the matter with me? What on earth is the matter with me? What's happening? Delusions. That's what they are. They're delusions. I must be sick. I must be running a fever. I'm not even warm. I don't have any fever. No fever at all.
They needed to get her distress verbalized, or they thought they did. I think it would have been fine without it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's just a indicator of the time period where I think today there wouldn't be a fear that we have to spell out absolutely everything. I think there'd be more trust in the actor to convey it, but I didn't think it like ruined it or anything. It was just kind of most episodes do not have inner monologues, so it kind of sticks out when they do.
So Millicent's kind of freaking out, and help arrives in the form of a guy named Paul from Binghamton. It's funny, like, as I watch that, knowing as I do that Rod Serling, the author of this episode, is from Binghamton, my immediate thought was like, oh, come on, Rod, like, But I don't know. It's funny, like, having little bits of inside knowledge about the creator of a show. I mean, that's already very nerdy to begin with, but especially back then, it's like, there's probably one person watching this show who knew that about Rod Serling. But to me, I'm like, oh, God, rub it in our faces.
Always got to push your Binghamton agenda on everybody.
Do you know it's interesting, though, because I think
Binghamton wing politics.
Do you feel like in contemporary, like, shows that often people put little, I guess, Easter eggs like that into things with the expectation that the audience will kind of understand it or will think about it more? I don't know.
See, I don't know, because I don't think I watched many shows with the, with an understanding of the background of the creator. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe the, showrunner of Grey's Anatomy is tossing stuff at me left and right. I don't know. I'm just loving the stories.
Yeah, understood. Understood and approved.
Incidentally, my name is Grinstead, Paul Grinstead. I'm from Binghamton.
How do you do? I'm Millicent Barnes. At least I was Millicent Barnes. I'm a private secretary. I quit my job here on Thursday, and I got another job in Buffalo. That's where I'm going tonight, to Buffalo. Everybody keeps telling me that I've been here before. That man who takes the tickets, he says I keep asking about the bus. And the woman in the powder room, she says I've been in there before, and I haven't been. And my bag here. My bag.
There it is.
Basically the best scare in the episode when she gasps and there's a cut to an empty space, but then they pan over slightly and the bag's there. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird because it's like her like peripheral vision must be severely impaired. It is kind of cool though because like what she's saying doesn't sound that shocking in a way, and I think that's what's so kind of cool about this episode is that it's very eerie if you're the one experiencing all these weird little coincidences, but in the retelling, it's just like, so you lost your bag and you think you're losing your mind? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of cool.
Everything's just ever so slightly off.
Exactly, yeah.
But seriously, Serling, everyone knows Paul Grinstead was Serling's high school debate partner.
Yeah.
Rubbing it in our face.
Duh. The bus finally arrives, and Paul and Millicent are going to get on it. They go outside, they give their tickets to get on, but Millicent gets quite a shock when she sees herself on the bus looking pretty cocky. I don't know. I just love the expression on her doppelganger's face. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm on the bus, all right. Like, I don't know. And it's quite a shock, obviously.
Yeah.
We cut to commercial and we get back, and Millicent is passed out on a bench, and they've turned off the lights in the bus station, or some of them, because the next bus isn't until 7 a.m. I think the usage of the bus station is really kind of smart and cool for this episode, because it's like a normal location that takes on an eeriness because it's abandoned, kind of like the mall in the after hours. And I think like because it's late at night, of course they're going to turn the lights off, which then kind of like is a nice emotional marker to like ratchet up the eeriness of the episode. Do you know what I mean? I thought that was just
I kind of disagree because I thought it was a little bit more for the sake of the episode that she's suddenly sitting in like a darkened room, because I don't know. I just have to think that the bus depot would be willing to keep the fluorescent lights on if they've got like people sitting there in the middle. They wouldn't just be like, sorry, nothing. This is protocol. The switch has to be here.
We do get a good explanation of that from the old bus depot man. Did you catch it?
We've heard a lot of explanations from Rumsfeld, but, you know, are they satisfied?
True. Well, in a very Rumsfeldian touch, he says something like, oh, God, what does he say? It's like in rhyme form. He's like, if there's no goose, save the juice. What did he say? It was something like that, wasn't it?
I don't remember this.
Oh, it was the catchiest part of the episode for me. He has a little saying justifying ratcheting up the emotional tension of the episode. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
5 years from now, we're going to get a report about the electric usage in the bus depot that's just going to shatter all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We had evidence of LEDs or something like that. We were told there were LEDs. Oh God, it's kind of sad that like bus depot man is Donald Rumsfeld is like the richest ground for satire we have this time around.
Well, part of that's because it's a good episode, so we're
true.
we're hitting on the edges where we can.
Yeah, I will say that I do disagree though, because I think it's like, I think, you know, given that there's so few people there, it's not that they turn off all the lights; they just turn off some of the lights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They just, you know, they've just put on the red light bulbs, and they have to play the moody music.
Exactly.
That's part of the fire code.
Totally, and they have to have the guy with the thunder machine just kind of like shaking it. And
that's what they do. They don't want to do it during the day; it would scare people.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been remembering.
Remembering what?
Something I read or heard about a long time ago. About different planes of existence. About two parallel worlds that exist side by side. And each of us has a counterpart in this world. And sometimes, through some freak, through something unexplainable, this counterpart, after the two worlds converge, comes into our world, and in order to survive, it has to take over.
I don't know. Just something about, like, I was remembering an article I read in the Journal of Applied Experimental Physics. It's right. Just like, I don't know. I understand why they had to do it. And
plus, it's also, I mean, Yeah, you could have been reading, like, I was reading Bill Bryson's A Short History of Everything, and you get some scientific concepts, but where in that is it? And they said something about how you've got to murder the other person when they come in there. I remember that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it might have been better if it was like not a scientific thing, but she was recounting the plot of some book she read or something like that.
Right.
It's just really awkward. Like,
it's still, even if it were that, it'd be clunky because it's like, I read a book that happens to have the plot of the thing I'm going through at the moment.
The book was called Stories from the Twilight Zone by Rod Serling. Right. It is a kind of cool performance from her, though, because even though she's kind of given a bit of clunky dialogue, she's got this very like haunted look on her face, which of course we as the audience can understand. But Paul just reads as like, okay, like, and he goes over to the bus depotman to
what is he, like, tucked into his little cot now? Is he just sleeping there?
I don't know. He's just sitting there in the dark, kind of happily humming. I don't know. And meanwhile, we get kind of a cool little sequence of Millicent going into the ladies' room to sort of like call out and talk to her, doppelganger. It's funny because when I saw this episode a long time ago, I remember that as being one of my favorite scenes in the Twilight Zone. But watching it this time, it's like the doppelganger's on the bus, and she knows that. You know what I mean? What did you think about it?
Well, I will say it didn't register for me in the way that it did for you in the past.
Past you.
So I don't know. Maybe my coldly logical brain was really like, she's on the bus.
Yeah, she's probably in Utica by now.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think what I liked about it is that, like, in a more traditional, like, horror story, the character would go into a darkened room and, like, say, well, come out, and there would be like a big shock, and the person would jump out. But because it doesn't really go anywhere, it's like weirdly this like little existential moment. Like the conventions of film would imply that something has to happen there, but nothing does. So it's like this weird, interesting, empty space that to me is kind of more disturbing than, a monster jumping out.
The episode we're really winding down, and we'd had that beat where Millicent is not confronted by her doppelganger again. It would be pretty disappointing, or it would feel very incomplete, but it's not going to be a problem as we go forward. So
Millicent goes and sits down, and meanwhile Paul has made the call to the loony bin. And I heard just the next beat of the story is so crazy. Like, he's like, oh, I called a car and my friend's going to come pick us up. And he leads her out, and a police car just like screeches to a stop in front of the curb. The cops get out, just grab Millicent, put her in the back of the car, say like, hi to Paul, and then just speed off. Like, did he just call the cops and say like, hey, I'm a white male, it's the 50s, just come arrest this woman, okay? Like,
yeah, there's a woman. She's being a little weird. Yeah. Let's just play this one safe tonight, guys.
She lost her bag, okay, guys.
Right. No, that crazy. Definitely. I feel like I've seen this episode several times. It's a great episode, and I don't feel like I've dwelled on it before, but this time definitely the part that left the strongest impression is like, wait, was there really a world where like some dude could just make a phone call and you go to the insane asylum for at least the night?
Yeah.
Like a stranger. It's not like his family. Yeah. Family is saying this. It's just like, that guy I've been talking to for 10 minutes, he didn't like the look at me. I'm going, what?
Yeah. Well, the cops take Millicent away to the loony bin, freeing up her doppelganger to wreak havoc on upstate New York. And Paul is going to take a little snooze and wait for the next bus. He puts down his suitcase and goes to get a drink from the water fountain. And in this kind of clever shot, the camera stays on him. He puts down his suitcase, walks over to the water fountain, gets a drink. It's one continuous shot. And when he looks up, we see that the suitcase has been removed.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Oh, man. And very quickly, the episode goes balls to the wall crazy because a man in a suit, who we intuit very quickly is Paul's doppelganger, dashes out of the bus depot. And then we get just a really dumb shot of Paul chasing his doppelganger It's like a great episode, but it's just kind of a bummer that it ends on this wacky fake green screen shot. You know what I mean? It just looks so goofy.
I think the thing that saves it for me is the expression on Doppelganger Paul's face.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty creepy. Like, the Doppelganger has just this, like, mischievous, like, gremlin
Puckish
evil.
grin, yeah.
Pucket. And that's pretty cool to me. That's a part that I really like, of the idea that there are these doppelgangers and they're just here to kind of F stuff up.
Yeah.
You know?
It is kind of funny that they do it well where, like, you know, they'll show regular Millicent and then they'll show Doppelganger Millicent, and just by the expression on Doppelganger Millicent's face, you're kind of like, oh, that's a totally different person. You know what I mean? And same thing with Doppelganger Paul. I just think they were like, oh, we could do this effect shot. Let's do it. You know what I mean?
I think they wanted to be able to have them both in the shot at the same time.
No,
I'm guessing split screen would have had problems with focus, maybe, like if they're both running.
Yeah.
They did what they could. It didn't quite work.
Yeah.
You know, revealing the twist, I think, is very, very good, so it doesn't hurt me so much. It's kind of like in the way that Nightmare at 20,000... in the way that the Nightmare at 20,000 Feet monster is so stupid looking, but it doesn't make it like a bad like it's still for me a pretty effective episode despite that problem. I'd say this is similar.
Yeah, I know you're right. And then Sterling takes us out.
Obscure metaphysical explanation to cover a phenomena. Reasons dredged out of the shadows to explain away that which cannot be explained. Call it parallel planes or just insanity. Whatever it is, you find it in the Twilight Zone.
Call it avant-garde physics or monkey shines. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the episode. One thing I thought was kind of a little bit interesting, having seen this episode probably, I don't know, at this point, maybe 5 or 6 times. So one thing I noticed this time is that the sort of like suitcase appearing and disappearing is a little nonsensical and not really all that logical. You know what I mean? Like...
I think Doppelganger Millicent just has her own agenda while she's waiting in the bus stop. So maybe Doppelganger Millicent wanted to check the bag, whereas regular Millicent didn't.
Yeah, but then why did she subsequently uncheck the bag and put it back? You know, it goes back and forth. That's the problem.
I think also there's the slight possibility that by the expression we get on their faces, like I do think that these people just kind of like to mess with their...
it's like an alternate dimension of Ashton Kutcher's.
There is really a feel. Like they cut to the control room. They're all just like, this is great, we're getting them.
Yeah.
It is just an interesting thing, and I'm sure there's other examples of this in fiction and in television movies, but Millicent is the person we're following for 90% of the episode, but it's kind of interesting that the last twist gets revealed to us through Paul, who we think of as a secondary or not as important character.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you thought that was kind of neat. Like, you'd kind of assume that the final coup de grace is going to happen to Millicent, but it doesn't. She gets taken off stage.
It's pronounced coup de grace, but...
oh, right. Sorry.
Coup de grace.
Forgot I was the resident can't pronounce French
person.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice little pivot. I thought it was cool. I also think, we were talking... we've discussed before how the Twilight Zone doesn't often have female protagonists. And I think that, like... in this one, it's kind of neat because it plays on the stereotype of, like, oh, a hysterical woman and everyone around her just thinks she's crazy. And then there's a nice little flip where the guy who is, maybe willing to listen to her but then came to the conclusion that she was crazy, learns, au contraire, mon Freund. And so I think that, I don't want to say that...
we realize this situation is so shocking, even a man could be scared of it. It's that bad.
I know. But I do think, like, Millicent is, maybe not the best female character that Serling ever wrote, but it does have a nice little flip of that kind of, like, gender stereotype, I think.
Don't know if I have much else to talk about. I mean, it's obviously
kind of a tale well told,
Yeah. It's a good yarn in the kind of Matheson vein.
Yeah.
Kind of surprising that it wasn't one of his.
Yeah, and it's funny, it definitely didn't have too much Serling dialogue. I guess that was probably like...
No, it is much more atmospheric and moody than a lot of his episodes, which rely on a lot of dialogue to get us through.
Yeah. Maybe there was like 6 minutes about the dignity of man that was cut from the scene with the bathroom cleaning lady.
What we doing next?
Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia.
right. In a short film pitching the Twilight Zone series to a Dutch television station, creator Rod Serling claimed to have gotten the idea for Mirror Image following an encounter at an airport. Serling noticed a man at the other side of the terminal who wore the same clothes and carried the same suitcase as himself. Serling considered what would happen if the man turned around and it was revealed to be a duplicate of himself, but he reported that in fact the man turned around and he was younger and, quote, more attractive. Hard to believe.
I
right?
know.
Hard to believe.
Oh.
Self-deprecating little bastard.
Yeah. Have you ever, like, this is kind of a more general thing, but have you ever, met anybody who is purported to look like you, if not actually does look like you? I always feel like when someone is like, they look just like you, I'm always very let down by seeing the actual person. And
I do remember getting reports in high school about there being a guy who worked at the Gap who looked just like me. And
the
I remember being a little I remember being kind of annoyed by that, and I talked about going and confronting this person.
Yeah.
Like, what's your problem?
Yeah.
Give me my face.
Got a problem here?
But no, I don't know. I mean, I've seen people who look relatively like me. It doesn't bother me.
You have kind of you're the fact that you're so tall and like, I like how people don't know what we look like, and I'm just kind of like vaguely the fact that you
the
have
way you wear that monocle,
Yes.
the cleft palate that never really healed. You've just got something about you,
yeah,
John.
exactly. The one ear that's 4 times as large as the other.
I don't know. People in the past have said like there's a bit of a Lennon look, or there's a John Oliver. I think I just
John Oliver.
I've got so much,
that's a good one. Yeah,
I've got so much Irish and English. I've
Yeah.
got like a pretty. It looks like I come from the Isles.
When did you say Lennon? Did you mean Vladimir Lenin or John Lennon?
I've heard some John Lennon when
Really?
my hair grows a certain way, but I don't think it's that overt.
I guess your nose is kind of John Lennon-y.
Yeah, that's what people point to.
I don't know. It's just that your
like
hair
I
is
get
so...
my guitar out and they're like, "My God, you've got the nose of John
Yeah,
Lennon."
exactly. Sing through
None
your
of the
nose.
musical
John.
ability. How about you? Have you ever gotten any celebrity comparisons?
Yeah, people say Jonathan Franzen. I look like him.
No, wait, is that the...
Sorry, I guess that's not really a celebrity.
Is that the guy from Star Trek The Next Generation, or is that a writer?
It's a writer. You don't know who Jonathan Franzen is?
Oh, the guy who wrote the corrections.
Yes. Yeah.
I have no idea what he looks
Well,
like.
Google him right now. We got plenty of time. We're only an hour in.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I mean, if
passable.
If you're going to pick a guy, a person, I think that's the closest. And then other times people, it's like when you're like a white dude with brown hair who lives in Brooklyn and has glasses, it's just, there's just like a cavalcade of people who kind of look like you,
Sure.
And so that kind of thing gets thrown around a lot, but other than that, not really.
It's rather shocking that as far as I recall, have you ever grown a beard?
Yeah, briefly, but not like a big thick one. Nothing Walt Whitman-y. How about you? You never had a beard.
Has the beard? Yeah, I've got one at the moment. The beard trend, is that kind of passé in Brooklyn at this point, or is it?
John. It's not 2008 anymore, my friend.
Is it over?
It's long over at this point. Yeah, people don't have beards anymore.
Now it's Austin. We're kind of behind the times.
Yeah.
It's like when everyone started getting into craft cocktails down here. I think it was like way over in New York. So
yeah, I think it's like the sort of like lumber sexual thing is definitely like waning because there's like a lot of like opinion pieces about how big it is. So that means it's kind of on the down slope.
Right
now, it's like let's get back to the episode. Anyway,
right.
Do you have any more trivia or?
Yeah, the cities mentioned we already talked about that. Okay. No, go ahead.
All right. I have Martin Graham Jr.'s Twilight Zone trivia book. It's kind of retells the Serling airplane anecdote in like 4 or 5 different ways. One thing that's kind of interesting is that, because Serling is from upstate New York and this episode takes place there, a lot of people were trying to figure out exactly what town it is. And I think people say it's Ithaca. The people
where the bus station is?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little...
Oh, I would think the Ithaca bus station would be larger.
Wasn't aware that you were such an expert on population and demographics of Ithaca, but I don't know. I mean,
in the early 60s,
of course.
Let's be specific.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would disagree because I think the bus station's pretty big, and I also think that, like, unless you're in a major city, and I'm not saying that Ithaca's not a city, but it's only like a 30,000, 35,000 people town. The bus station can be pretty small.
Isn't it much bigger than that?
It's not bigger than that, no.
I was thinking it was like 100. Now we got to go back to Google.
But also keep in mind this is 1959.
Well, we'll look very close. I'll look at the demographics.
Do the inflation calculation on the demographics.
It is currently 30,000. In 1960, it was 28,732.
Got it.
You're right, but that might be city, the metropolitan area.
Any Ithaca Poniacs, please write
The
in.
Ithaca, Tompkins, Cuyahoga Heights area.
Yeah,
is probably
we have a
hundreds of thousands.
Huge listenership in that realm, and I know we're going to get a lot of emails about that. But in terms of other trivia, there wasn't too much else. However, this episode is on YouTube, which brings us to...
YouTube comments. YouTube comments. YouTube comments.
So when I watch these episodes on YouTube, I like to read the comments section because I'm a glutton for punishment. And I copied some of the funnier ones. I'll probably edit around, judging based on your reactions. But here we go. Mm-hmm. In reference to Millicent's sort of rapid arrest, Meredith MTHL said, "Apparently one has no constitutional rights in the Twilight Zone."
Exactly.
I like
yes.
That. Marsh Pickle said, "You're under arrest for being unsure of stuff." Yeah. Mike,
these people are doing a way better job than we did this week.
I know. Can always turn to them. Mike Helton1 said, "It's not only that there's a parallel plane, but apparently everyone's kind of a dick in the parallel plane." Enjoyed that. Sheraliku2 said, "The old guy must have had his counterpart work half the time to be able to stay there for 4 hours reading a magazine." I don't know. We didn't really talk about the fact that it's a bit odd that the portal to the other dimension is in the can in Ithaca. I don't know. Probably should have talked about that more. I just like this guy's username and comment taken together. Jesus Christ 3 said, "Great presentation." I don't know. I just like that. And finally, someone named Paragram Tree apparently compared the episode to Sliding Doors, and Agnes Wild 3 replied to that comparison, "You f***ing idiot, Sliding Doors is nothing like this. You really are a dumb you."
That's the YouTube comments that I know and love.
Exactly. And I look forward to getting out the censoring bleep for that last one.
Yeah.
What about bios?
Vera Miles played Millicent Barnes. She was in both Psycho and Psycho 2. She was also in The Searcher. She was a former Miss Kansas. She had a long career. Hats off to her. Martin Milner played Paul Grinstead.
Oh, shit.
While at Fort Ord, Milner met actors David Janssen and Clint Eastwood. Supposedly, Janssen and Milner encouraged Eastwood, who was serving as a swimming instructor at the base, to go into acting. Grinstead also played the same actor in 4 different television series: Dragnet 1967, Adam 12, The DA, and Emergency. So, written by Serling, directed by John Brom. He did 12 episodes. We've seen his work in The New Exhibit and The Four of Us Are Dying, possibly 1 or 2 others. And that brings us to the...
Inevitable.
So we like to find connections between the Twilight Zone and Mystery Science Theater 3000. What do we got this week?
Joe Hamilton played Ticket Agent. He was also in the Mystery Science Theater episodes Attack of the Giant Leeches, uncredited as Old Sam Peters, which is kind of amusing. How do you... Well, I guess... Okay. Uncredited as Old Sam Peters, and he was also in the episode Teenage Caveman.
One really important thing we forgot to mention, that at one point in the episode, that guy says, "Who you gonna call?" Really, just in the perfect cadence. And so many people on YouTube commented, "Ghostbusters," with a little tag to that time. That was kind of fun.
IMDb gives this episode an 8.0.
Pretty high, definitely in the top tier.
Yes.
I think it's a great episode. It combines the pedestrian with the surreal in a very sort of elegant way. I believe the lights being turned off was a subtle touch. So it's definitely up there for me. What about you?
Yeah, I think this falls in, like you said, into the tale well told. It feels like a Matheson story in that regard. I don't think there's much deeper than a good campfire story. I think the only kind of sore thumbs are when she has to explain the parallel universe thing. It is pretty clunky, and I agree the last shot could be better, and I have seen it multiple times at this point, and it didn't grab me as much this time as it has in the past, but I can remember, really enjoying it before. So I'm thinking it's kind of 8+, 9- E for me. What are you thinking?
To me, the only thing I really don't like about it is that last shot. I know it's so silly to like harp on that, but it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth because it just looks so goofy, and the episode is, I think, actually more disturbing than goofy. And I don't know, it kind of ends on a slide whistle when you want it to end on like a more subtle touch. So for me, it's very, very good with one flaw that kind of annoys me. So it's a 9.
Okay, and I'll stick with 8+.
Cool. Heated debate.
Yeah. We're going to have to go to our separate corners here for a week just to cool off.
I know. God damn it. So that wraps it up for Mirror Image, which was the 90th episode of our podcast.
90 down.
Only
66
more to go, yeah.
Who's counting?
But anyway, it was a request from a couple of people, I think.
Requested by Ginny Boo and requested by TSDCX.
Oh, right, exactly. The catchily named. So thank you guys for that request.
Right.
Next week, we're going to do another request. It was requested by Hollis Dix on Tumblr, and it is called U Drive. It's a 5th season episode, so check it out before next week. Also, the time has come for us to announce the winners of our holiday giveaway contest. The prompt was to write a holiday greeting in the style of Rod Serling. First place wins the Twilight Zone DVD box set. Second place wins some books. Third place wins some toys. So we got a lot of great entries, and we've picked 3 to sort of be our front runners, and we're going to analyze live on air which one's number 1, number 2, number 3. So go ahead.
All right, let's hit number 1. This was a submission by a listener by the name of Harold.
Good evening. I'm Rod Serling, creator, writer, producer, Emmy winner, and resident know-it-all of The Twilight Zone. I have in my hand an envelope. In said envelope is a letter. On said letter is a question. Said question I orate to you now. What is your favorite holiday? If you watch The Twilight Zone, it should be abundantly clear what my favorite holiday is. To be precise, I like men. To be more precise, I like men of the sweaty persuasion. To be precise, I like breaking glass. To be more precise, breaking windows, breaking mirrors, or breaking jaws of the glass persuasion. To be precise, I like fighting. To be more precise, I like combat of the pugilistic persuasion. Put those particular items together and it's a stated fact what my favorite holiday is. Canadian Boxing Day. Any day that celebrates battling Maxo men with nerves of steel and the breaking of glass jaws is a big, tall wish of the highest sort. Some people may say that's not what this holiday is all about. They may weave some distorted and twisted tale that's actually about giving boxes to servants of the wealthy. Those who believe that fantastic fictional fable are indeed living in the bleakest, deepest, darkest, non-sweaty, blue corner of the Twilight Zone.
He's got a weird kind of like almost scat influence take on Serling.
He really makes you wait for it.
I know. Like, it's like Morse code or something. Cool. So that was Harold's Canadian Boxing Day. Very nice. Let's hear the next one.
All right. And the next submission is from, let me be sure to get these correct. The next submission is from a listener by the name of Kristaps, celebrating Bastille Day.
La Fête Nationale Française, better known to normal people as Bastille Day. As strange as it may seem to us to celebrate the freeing of fraudsters from confinement in a feeble fortress, for the French, this represents a turning point in history. For on this day in 1789, a ragtag rabble of roustabouts made up of the unemployed dregs of Paris kick-started the French Revolution. As I learned in my 3-month bike tour around Provence after the war, This peculiarly pompous provincial party is today celebrated by overindulgence in fromage, football, and frog legs in a manner only befitting the gallant gluttony the country is known for. But as the French say, ceci n'est pas une pipe, and this is no ordinary holiday. Liberté, égalité, supernaturalité. Bonjour, bienvenue à la Twilight Zone.
Nice. Definitely extra points for the sound effects.
And we will round it out with a submission via Don celebrating Arbor Day.
Submitted for your leafing. Take a year. Dissect it into 365 equal parts and moniker each of them as a day. Pair that measurement with a horticultural terpsichore involving various trees from Hyperion to bonsai, assorted lycopods, subshrubs, and a few tasteful ferns as invited guests. And let the photosynthetic gangbang, known to unsophisticates as Arbor Day, commence. Is corn grass? Address all inquiries, care of Mr. Ernie Keebler, at the hollow tree, down that leafy glade known as the Twilight Zone.
I don't think we've ever said gangbang on the podcast. So, do we have to bleep that? Or
I don't know. It's borderline.
We'll have to talk to our...
Yeah, our iTunes censor.
We have to talk to our iTunes
person.
Consultant. Yeah. Cool. Well, I really, they're all good. I think Don's to me an Arbor Day is the winner, is the grand prize winner. What do you think?
I do think he's married a good concept with the atmosphere very well. So.
Submitted for your leafing, is that what he said?
Right, yeah.
I enjoyed that. And Subshrubs was another gem as well.
Yes, indeed.
So, Don, you are our number one contest winner. Now we have to break it down to 2 and 3. Bastille Day versus Canadian boxing. It's tough. They're both good.
They're both very
did you
good
have any
choices.
thoughts? I like supernatural talents. God, now I'm the one stumbling over foreign words.
Yeah, I do have a slight lean towards Bastille Pwn. So,
Okay. All right.
Not to take anything away from Harold or the many other entries we got. We appreciate them all.
Harold's winning some toys, so taking nothing away at all.
Oh, this is a good... Yeah, I forgot this year.
Yeah.
There's no shame in second or third place.
Whereas last year, there was a lot of shame in second place.
We lost a lot of listeners.
For shame, second place. Cool. So, Chris Tapps, second place, and Harold, third place. So, thank everyone very much for entering. It was a lot of fun to hear your takes on Serling. We have, ideally, one more year, so get working on your best Serling impressions, and we will revisit this in 12 months or so. But
for those listeners that did win, I guess we'll be in touch with your emails.
Cool.
Yeah.
But until then, there's a lot more Twilight Zone to get through. If you'd like to write us about any old thing or request an episode, please do. John, how can they do that?
You can send us an email at twilightpwn@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at twilightpwn. You can check out our website, twilightpwn.tumblr.com, where we put up pictures, things we find or create related to the episodes we discuss, including a very interesting new take on He's Alive, which I think everyone should check out.
Yeah, in classic Tumblr fashion, it's like, I think the funniest thing I've done for our Tumblr, and it has like 3 notes, whereas my GIF of Julie Newmar taking off her jacket has 1,000 notes.
Right. So you can also listen to us on Stitcher or TuneIn Radio, or you could subscribe to us on iTunes. If you're there, please leave us a review. We really appreciate it. On that note, thank you very much to Patrick, EJ6385, and Shiftless1 for leaving reviews in the last week or two.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Really appreciate it.
A lot of reviews. Really appreciate it. And I will close not with a question, but a bit of trivia, which is that doppelganger is a German word. Doppel meaning double, ganger meaning goer. So one who goes as a double. Any thoughts?
I'm going to get going. I'll talk to you next week, Fred.
If you're lucky. Bye.
Okay. Bye.